Hey Year 9s, welcome back. This is exercise 6G on scientific notation using significant figures, and it's on page 403 of your textbook. So we very briefly mentioned significant figures last lesson, but hopefully you've heard of them somewhere before. So significant figures are always counted from left to right. Now that is important, make sure you remember that. From left to right, and we start at the first non-zero digit. Okay? So zeros with no non-zero digits on their right are not counted, and I'll explain what that means. If I have, for example, 38,041, I'm thinking, well, what's the first non-digit zero from the left? Well, it would be 3, and I go 38041, and I'm including the 0 because it's not on the very left or the very right, it's in the middle. So I'm including that, and then end up with 5 significant figures. If I look at the second example, I got 0.0016, which has 2 significant figures, and I end up having 2 significant figures because the first 3 zeros are only there for place value, and if I'm looking at it from left to right, the 1 is the first non-zero digit, so 1, 6 are my significant figures. If I'm looking at 3.21, if I was to go ahead and change that into a decimal form, so we can go ahead and do that actually. So I've got 3.21 times by 10 to the power of 4. Now, because I'm going from scientific to decimal, I'm thinking to myself that it's to the power of positive, so it needs to be a really large number. So 3.21, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm filling in the spaces with zeros and end up with my new decimal point here, and that means that my value is 32,100. So you can see that from the left to the right, I've got my first non-zero digit being 3, and then I've got 2 and 1, and the rest of them are 0, so I don't count them, and I have 3 significant figures. So when using scientific notation, the first significant figure sits to the left of the decimal point, and that's what we're focusing on today. Now you can use a calculator to work with scientific notation, and it will look different depending on what your calculator is, but normally you have times 10 to the power of something button, and that'll be quite useful from going from scientific to decimal. Hopefully you're more familiar with the calculator because it's a very much more easier topic to understand if you have your calculator to support you there. Got a couple of examples over here. So let's first state the number of significant figures given in these numbers. So over here, remember, we got to remember it's left to right, and we got to remember it's the first non-zero digit. So from left to right, I've got 451, and the 4 is the first non-zero digit. So I'm counting everything after that. That's not a 0. That's very far on the right. So I've got 451. I've got 3 significant figures, and SF stands for significant figures. Okay, let's go with 0.005012. I'm going with my first non-zero digit, which is my 5, and then I've got 012. Just to reiterate, I am including this 0 right here because it's in the middle of my other values. These ones here aren't significant because they're on the very far left, or if I had 000 here, they would not be significant either. Okay, so I have 4 significant figures. All right, let's write these numbers using scientific notation and 3 significant figures. So 3 significant figures means I'm going to go ahead and find the first 3 significant figures. My first non-zero digit from the left is 2, and I've got 1, 8. So I'm going to focus on the 2, 1, and 8. Now to 3 significant figures, I know that my decimal place is right here. I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the number right of my first non-zero digit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6, right? So I know it's 2. Now remember, it's a super large number, so it's positive. So 2.18, and I'm not including the 3 because I'm only 3 significant figures, remember? And then I write times 10 to the power of positive 6. All right. Next one over here, I know it's a really small value, so it's going to be a negative power. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Remember, because 1 is my first non-zero digit. So that's 3. So I know that my significant figures, there's 1, 9, 4, 8, 2. I'm not including the 8 and 2 because there's only 3 significant figures, so 1, 9, 4. But I need to round up because it's 8, right? Hopefully you remember that with 8, we're rounding up. So I get 195 instead of 194. After that, we go ahead and do our decimal point right after our first non-zero digit. and I write times 10 to the power of 3. Negative 3, because it's a very small value, remember. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do this question over here. So use a calculator to evaluate each of the following, leaving your answers in scientific notation, correct to 4 significant figures. So when you put this in the calculator, you got to make sure you know how to use the scientific notation button. So find the button that lets you enter the scientific notation, and I believe this is a mode. So if you hit mode, and I think it's either 8 or 9, it'll show you significant figures. And then once you've done that, I want you to see if you get the same answer. So what I got was, for the first question, I got 8.661 times 10 to the power of 10. And for the second one, I got 1.625 times by 10 to the power negative 1. Remember, there's a difference between significant figures and decimal places. If we look at this one over here, it needs to be 4 significant figures. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's different from decimal place, because decimal places, this one would be 3 decimal places. So we're working with significant figures, and that includes the number of the front. Over here, I also have 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you need any help.